church business. He is headmaster of Dublin High School and a member of the Secondary Education Committee, which distributes funds to Protestant schools.
We would never have experienced a conscious policy of the Irish state to disadvantage Protestants. Quite the opposite. In recent years, in the education field with which I'm most familiar, the state has gone out of its way to find out what are the real needs and sensitivities of Protestant schools and to cater to the best of its ability for those needs.
They go out of their way to be fair, I would say. It may be at times they fall over backwards in being fair. Take one example. Over the last 30 years, most of the secondary schools under Protestant management have been completely reconstructed, many of them on new sites, with vast amounts of support financially from state funds. The situation is entirely transformed from what it was when a commission reported in 1965 and found that they were largely getting into a state of decrepitude.
It is a Protestant-managed school with, broadly speaking, a Protestant ethos, and we have a minority of non-Protestants attending the school, happily integrated into the fabric of the school.
I don't feel that the differences between the Protestant and Catholic religions are big enough to cause any problems. Obviously, in the north they have, but down here people don't really, in my experience, people don't really care. And I wouldn't really know who was a Protestant and who was a Catholic. No one asks anyone else. It's not an issue.
Do you think of Protestants as being a bit more British than Catholics?
Definitely not. If you look in the prayers, all the prayers that are directed at authority in the state are to the President. It is the Church of Ireland, not the Church of England.
But I mean, your forebears were the British people in Ireland who wanted Ireland to remain British?
I'm afraid not, no. My forebears were Irish people who converted to the Church of Ireland in the 17th century. And I can trace my ancestry back to the 15th. I'm Irish, definitely, and then European.
The notion of being threatened because you are a member of a particular religious group is alien to our experience. I mean, I'm not sure where the question is coming from, to be quite honest with you. If you speak to our pupils, they have no sense of being in a minority or threatened by anybody.
When my mum was young, she used to always suffer from being called Proddy Green Guts when she went to school and stuff. And when she tells us that, we usually just can't believe it because it's so foreign to us. Like, we wouldn't be teased or anything like for our religion. There's no difference.
Hey, come on!
The old animosities now are virtually dead, and as time goes on, well, they will be extinct very soon, and it's just the very, very old generations that still hold grudges against Protestants for what might have happened 60 or 70 years ago. But now the younger generation has learned to accept that Protestants and Catholics does make a difference, and this school is an example of how Protestants and Catholics can live together and get on perfectly well together.
Religion isn't really something that we'd talk about and be talking about every day. I mean, it might come up in a conversation with someone sometime, but it's not something that bothers us a lot or we talk about a lot or worries us.
I'm wondering if it's something that you avoid talking about.
Perhaps, but really we don't find that many differences to talk about or anything. It's not something that needs to be avoided because for us there's not really any difference.
But in a few years' time, most of these kids will be thinking of getting married. Won't the pull of communal loyalties then make them look for partners from within their own denomination?
I have no preference at all. For me, I wouldn't have any qualms about marrying Protestant and Catholic. I would like to keep within the Christian faith, but Protestant and Catholic, I really don't mind.
I think for the children, I think they should be introduced to both Protestant and the Catholic Church, and when they're old enough, they should be able to make their own mind up which church they wish to go and become part of.
I totally agree with that because in my own household, my brother and myself were both brought up within the Catholic and the Protestant communities, and my brother has chosen to become a Catholic and I've chosen to become Church of Ireland. And so, you know, some people might think there are difficulties there, but in reality there are none. And like, for different reasons, we both chose the different ones. And I think it makes, once they're given a free choice, I think it's very important.
I would see in the demand for schooling from what I would call traditional Protestant families, I would see the figures as fairly static. And there is in fact an interesting feature in that it would be my perception that there is a slowly growing number of children in mixed marriages being brought up nowadays as Protestant, or at least being called Protestant. So I'm not sure that the numbers are as obviously declining as one might at first think.
We're lucky in that Tom has made some commitment, obviously, to our church, because for the sake of the children, I think it's nice that we can go as a family to worship, rather than him going off on his own and me going off, say, with the children. He is not a Presbyterian. He has chosen to continue as a Catholic, and I think always will.
I'm still a Catholic. I'm still an active Catholic, but. I would also, I'm on the, well, I was on the committee for a period of years, on the Presbyterian committee in the church. So I'd be certainly active within the Presbyterian church as well. I would identify with both.
Might your parents have had a sense that the Protestant community was losing a member?
Possibly they did, because, you know, certainly their perception would have been that any, I think, friends of their generation, if they had married a Roman Catholic, they would definitely left the Protestant church, because all children would have been automatically and had to be brought up as Roman Catholics. Whereas at the time when we got married, Tom, as the Catholic partner, would have had to give a verbal promise to do his utmost to bring up the children as Catholic. But I didn't have to give any promise, and so there was no question that I would necessarily have to become a Roman Catholic. So things had changed. And there was maybe less feeling that, you know, I was being lost.
But haven't you, Tom, in a sense, broken the promise that you made? You didn't get them baptised in a Catholic church, and you haven't done your utmost to bring them up as Catholics.
Not at all. I would have, as I say, I would have worked it out. I would have, in fact, I was quite strong initially about bringing them up Catholics. In the initial stages, bringing them to the Mass, there was no real participation by them in the Eucharist. They were simply going along to the Eucharist. There was no backup in the Catholic Church situation for children. Whereas in the Presbyterian experience, the norm would be that they would go into the church, and then they would have Sunday school. So there was a great deal of activity and participation by the children in the Presbyterian church or denomination.
Boys and girls, you chose words out of that. You got some I wasn't thinking about, and you got others that I was asking you to look for. You had to choose the words. Today is the first Sunday in Lent. And in a way, Lent is all about choices.
We would go to Mass occasionally as a family, but the children always seemed to be expressed a bit more interest with going to the Presbyterian church, in that any child is interested in going to any church, let's be honest. Sometimes they prefer to sit at home and watch television. But at the moment, our children, they've all been baptised, which is baptism into the Church Universal. So we haven't made any decision, nor will we make a decision as to what they should be in the future. They will always have an option to do and follow whichever church they wish.
This is Miles Dungan here with Fridays today at 5.
Happened about 7 or 8 years ago, I can't exactly remember when, and it was something that it built over a period of time.
Broadcaster and writer Miles Dungan was born into a Catholic family, baptised a Catholic and educated in a Catholic school. By choice, he is a Protestant, and he doesn't think this is either treasonous or eccentric in modern Ireland.
I just found myself more comfortable with the rituals of one church as opposed to the rituals of the other churches. I had experienced both of them and had gone through a period of not being involved in religion of any kind because of some bad experiences as a child and as an adolescent. And I suppose was getting to an age where I was looking for something, where I was finding something missing, and where a decision had to be made. So the decision was made, and I decided to, I hope, spend the rest of my life, from a religious sense, in the Church of Ireland rather than the church into which I was born and which I had effectively abandoned at a very early age. My personal associations, and this is purely personal, is of a Christian brother who taught me when I was 11, 12 years of age. And he was an extremely brutal individual, and I, in common with everybody else in the class, was brutalized by this individual. And that was one of the reasons, that was the first step, if you like, that led me to ask more questions and get more fuzzy answers, and led to a very early disillusionment with that particular church. And I just chose to divorce myself at an early age.
I'll be there, yeah?
We'll get him up now. I will follow him by, let me see now.
How aware other people around me are of it, I don't know. I mean, I have made efforts to make people aware of the fact, just to alert them to the fact that I have made this change, you know, amongst my immediate circle of friends and work colleagues. I think most of them would be aware of it. To the vast majority of them, it is a matter of complete unimportance. What I decide to do on a Sunday morning is completely my own business and is no concern of theirs. They're not bothered by it. I think people can cold-bloodedly see it as just a purely religious decision, that this person has made a religious choice, that they have not, in converting from one religion to another, made a political choice or chosen to change tribes, if you like. I don't think the tribes as such exist in the Republic of Ireland to quite the same extent as they do in Northern Ireland.
You could be in Amsterdam, or you know, with the canals, or you could be in Poitiers in France. The feel of the place very often is quite European.
A Shankill Road Protestant, Paul Burgess is now a university lecturer in Cork, teaching youth and community work.
I particularly enjoy Cork because it reminds me very much of Belfast when I was a child. There are still the old cobblers and so on, the old tradespeople, all the stuff that kind of went out with Smithfield Market for me.
Paul Burgess may be unusual in that he has not divested himself of the loyalist culture that he grew up with. His own political thinking is rooted in it still, and it's confirmed, he believes, by some of what he sees in the South.
I come from a background that has traditionally expressed itself in triumphalist terms. Now, whilst I don't necessarily buy into the King Billy script and the Orange Lodges and so on and so forth, I do recognise that, in my opinion, that's a valid expression of a community's identity or a cultural identity. I may not like aspects of it. It may be, as I say, set in triumphalism, but until there's an acknowledgement, if you like, from Northern nationalists in some cases, that the Protestant community in the North are not lost Irish men and women who need to be brought back into the fold, but have a very unique and definitive cultural identity that, if not even in the short term, has been created and living in the state of Northern Ireland since 1922 or whatever, then I don't think we go anywhere.
Out of curiosity, Burgess went to an old-style Catholic Latin Mass in Cork last year, around the time of the divorce referendum campaign, and he found the old-style Catholic conservative presumptions to be stronger than even he'd expected.
The level of vitriol and viciousness being espoused from the pulpit was quite breathtaking, in the sense that there was blatant and naked lobbying happening from the priest to the congregation in terms of staying behind to help to give hands-on support to the no lobby. I was really taken aback that this could be happening in the second city of the Republic, in the middle of the second city of the Republic.
Is it just a foreign country to you?
No, I'm Irish. I hold an Irish passport as well as a British passport. I'm not sure if that's legal, but I do. No, it's foreign in many respects to my culture and to my life experience. I mean, in many little things, like everything from the welfare service to how well the roads are looked after.